Hi everyone, my name is Monet and I decided to do a vision board slash trifold poster board for the Creative Revision Project on the racial inequity in foster care. So first, before I get into this, my project that I decided to do was based off of mostly personal issues that I've found with foster care because I have family members who are social workers and I have very close family friends who have been in the foster care system. So a lot of my information was off of personal stories, which I know is not very formal, but I wanted to do more research into the racial inequity in foster care. And sadly, I did not find much luck, except for one site that provided a lot of insightful information. But for the most part, this issue is still ongoing throughout foster care in the United States, across the nation, all of it, but it's really understudied, so there's not a lot of information. I do have really good information, but like I said, it's pretty much under researched and a lot of people don't know about the racial inequity in foster care, and just a lot of people don't know about the basic general flaws in foster care. So I tried to get a few pointers on the actual racial inequity in foster care, but for the most part, this is just going to be an interactive board on foster care in general since I couldn't find a lot of information on what I needed. It's definitely unfortunate, but that's why I want to become a social worker and actually deal with the racial inequity in foster care, because it's affected really close family friends to me and it's just horrible. So I'll get into it. So first of all, foster care is a system in which a minor has been placed into a ward, group home, or private home of a state-certified caregiver referred to as a foster parent, or they can be left with family members who are approved by the state. The goal of foster care is to temporarily care for a child, keep them safe, and meet their ongoing needs until it is safe to reunify them with their birth parents or other family members. Foster care is provided to children and young people who are unable to live with their own families, and foster care supports families by caring for children while parents get to change. Well, in most cases. Foster carers are often in contact with the parents of the child or young person in care, and contrary to many beliefs about how beneficial foster care is to neglected children, the foster care system has many flaws that are swept under the rug. So first, we can go to the data. So I got this chart about children adopted from the foster care and youth who are waiting to be adopted. So children adopted from foster care, as you can see, the amount of white children is overpowering any other race. So we have African American at 17%, Latino or Hispanic at 22%, and multiracial at 9%. Oh, and then American Indian or Alaskan Natives, only 2% of them are adopted from care. And then the youth waiting to be adopted, there is a lot of white children who are waiting to be adopted, so that kind of like goes against like my project, kind of, but not really. Half of youth who aged out of foster care end up homeless or incarcerated. Aged out means you were in the foster care up until you were 18 and you can be on your own because at that point you're an adult. Sorry if this angle's weird. I don't have a tripod. Only 1 in 50 will graduate. So foster youth graduate college at the lowest rate of any demographic in the U.S. If we go over here, 70% of foster kids would like to go to college. Only 3% of kids who age out will earn a college degree. 1 in 4 won't graduate from high school or even get their GED. 60% of boys who age out are legally emancipated or have been convicted of crime. 32% of children who reach 18 in foster care were waiting in the system for more than 3 years. And then I have 7 in 10 girls who age out will become pregnant before age 21, and I just showed that. 7 in 10 girls, that's a lot of girls. 70% of all trafficked minors come from the foster care system. That's really sad. And a child enters foster care every 2 minutes in the US. That's crazy. And then I have this percentage that just shows the demographics of children who enter the foster care system. So I have a little bit of info. This one actually is about the racial inequity, but like I said, for the most part, the rest of it is just general foster care information. So unconscious racism is embedded in these civic institutions because in the past there have been white-only institutions for foster care, which obviously makes it super hard to welcome in other races into the foster care. African American and Native American children are less likely to receive the mental health services they need in foster care. Stereotypes cause misinterpretation and implicit bias when kids are placed. So like common misconceptions and stereotypes about like Black kids who have behavioral issues because their parents were drug addicts, or like Native Americans and Hispanic kids calling them illegal, or just saying that they're immigrants and stuff. African American children are at greater risk than white children of experiencing physical abuse in the system, so they've been placed in homes where they got abused even more. And Congress has responded to trends in foster care by enacting laws to remedy historical discrimination in foster care, but it just depends on the laws that are put in place in state, because there are still some states who do not have discriminatory laws saying you cannot discriminate against children in foster care based on their sex, based on their race, based on their sexuality, all of that. Native American children are disproportionately more likely to enter foster care, where they are at higher risk of secondhand abuse, so being abused yet again in the system. Foster care is overburdened and damages children and their families, that's obviously a given. And kids of color are more likely to drift in care. They're less likely to be reunited with family. They're more likely to have poor education, social skills, and behavioral outcomes. And then, like I said, I really have more personal stories to back up my evidence about the racial inequity. So again, not very formal, but it's based off of personal experience. And I did ask these people if I could share their stories. I mean, not really anonymously, because you can see their names. But my friend Yvonne, his mom's friend was a social worker, but she was not qualified to adopt him. But because it was her mom's friend, she was able to adopt all 4 boys, which is actually unlawful, and she quit her job after that so that she wouldn't be fired. But it had an everlasting effect on Yvonne. He was kicked out right after he turned 18, and all his brothers are in jail. Iris was in foster care for 9 months. She was starved till she was anorexic, and she was kicked in the face, breaking both her jaw sockets and the top palate of her mouth. This little boy, Gabe, my friend's little brother, he's still yet to be adopted. He has really bad behavioral issues. He's a little brown kid, and he's yet to be adopted. Love my friend Delon, but his family is not equipped to have Gabe right now, and I think there should be further action to make sure that he can get into a home that is actually going to be beneficiary to him. And then my friend Elijah was separated from his 4 siblings. He was taken by a single mom who abused him further, and when he turned 18 and graduated, he was kicked out and homeless. So those are just some personal stories. All of these are minority friends, by the way, so that just kind of shows the lack of interest with caseworkers and how they don't really pay attention to stuff like that. Unfortunately, this was supposed to be like an interactive board if we were in person, but that's not the case because of COVID, and I wanted to do like a little interactive board, like trivia type thing, so I'll go ahead and walk through it. What happens to kids who age out of the foster care system? If you didn't know, in most cases, nothing good. According to adoption.com, a whopping 20% of kids who age out upon turning 18 will instantly become homeless. How many kids are in foster care in 2020? Again, if you didn't already know this, there are approximately 424,000 foster youth nationwide. They range in age from infants to 21 years old, and the average age of a child in foster care is more than 8 years old, and there are slightly more boys than girls. What state has the highest foster care rate? If you didn't know, it's actually New Mexico. I did not know that. How many children are waiting for adoption in 2020? More than 100,000 are waiting to be adopted. What happens to foster youth after they age out of the system? I mean, that was kind of in the first one, so you should know that. They'll experience homelessness in most cases. What percent of children graduate from high school/college? The overall graduation rate for foster youth fell from 64.6% to 55.3% in 2020. That's really bad. And what percent of foster children are abused while in foster care? According to the Psychology Today's article, official statistics show as many as 28% of kids are abused while in the foster care system. So that could be being malnourished, like my friend Iris was, or even the physical abuse that she endured, or literally just being neglected again, even though kids go to the foster care system to overcome the situations that they were already in. So kids can oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Kids can experience abuse double the times. Like, they can experience abuse in their home and then when they get into foster care. For this section, I kind of just did a little recommendations. So if you want to get more informed about foster care, there's TV shows, The Fosters, an amazing show, Instant Family. I think that's a movie. That's not a show. And then This Is Us season 2. It really covers foster care very well. I love this YouTube film, Removed. It makes me cry every time, and it's just so sad. You should watch that. And obviously, just self-educating on foster care and how you can help. Fun facts. Obviously, not very fun because foster care is not fun, but in most locations, foster families are not allowed to show faces of foster kids on the internet. Parents provide letters of reference, background checks, and proof of income as part of the application process. Some foster children have been in 6 homes or more by the time they're 6 years old, which is really sad because they just lug around a trash bag. Foster parents get paid a small monthly amount to spend on the foster child or foster children, but in a lot of cases, parents have abused that power and taken the money for themselves and just done foster care for the money. Super unfortunate. Sometimes a foster child will feel unsafe with their foster family, or they may want to go back to live with their bio parents, but sadly the caseworkers don't always listen to them, which is super unfortunate because the caseworkers don't always know what's best for the kid. And then the last one, when siblings are separated, it increases the long list of traumatic experiences they have to deal with and creates even more difficulties as the kids try to adjust to their new and unfamiliar lives. And siblings who are separated may only see each other for an hour every few months, which isn't enough time to maintain a good relationship. So those are just some of the facts about foster care. A lot of people usually know that kind of stuff, but if you didn't, you know now. And then lastly, I had ways that you can be involved and help with foster care. So the first thing is that you can become a court-appointed special advocate. As a court-appointed special advocate, you're empowered by the courts to advocate on behalf of a child in foster care, which you do not have to be a lawyer or social worker. Another thing you can do is offer free photography and videography services to adoption agencies. This one's really cool because I know a lot of people have caught on to like camera skills and like made it a new hobby with like COVID and everything. So seriously, you should look into it if you are into photography and making videos. You can take videos and pictures of children that can be shared with prospective families so that it'll increase their chances of being adopted. You can mentor a child in foster care. So for you nerds who are really smart, becoming a mentor or tutor for a child in foster care is a great way to make the difference of a lifetime for a child in need of permanency. And lastly, you can fundraise and donate supplies, which I have done myself. Many children in foster care have very little to call their own. Everything from back to school supplies, toys, and suitcases are needed by foster care organizations. So if you are aware of your local foster care institutions, you should definitely look into donating to them or fundraising for them. So again, sorry, this is kind of iffy because we're not in person. It'd be way better if we were in person so you'd be able to like interact with it yourself. And this ran way longer than I expected it would, but hopefully you enjoyed and hopefully you learned new things about children in foster care. Thank you.